10:30 a.m. That's where Alec Newald's wristwatch stopped, his car clock too. A New Zealand car dealer left Rotorua for a 3-hour drive to Auckland in February 1989. He arrived 10 days later, so disoriented he watched other diners to remember how to use a knife and fork. What he says happened in those missing days, and who came looking for him afterwards, is what this case is built on. Alec Newald, a car dealer from Rotorua, set out in early February 1989 for what he described as a routine drive north. According to Newald's account, he left Rotorua on a Monday morning, planning to cover the 200-kilometre route to Auckland, a journey he said he had made many times before. The trip should have taken 3 hours. Newald says he arrived in Auckland 10 days later, with no memory of what happened in between. In his own words, he found himself in a city he knew well, but nothing felt familiar. The following morning, which Newald identified as a Thursday, he realized from the date that nearly a week and a half had passed. He reported feeling so disoriented that when he stopped to eat, he watched other diners to remind himself how to use a knife and fork. His wristwatch and the clock in his car, according to Newald, had both stopped at exactly 10:30 a.m., the time he last remembered before the gap. These details, as described in Newald's book and interviews, form the backbone of his missing time claim. No independent police report or diner receipt has been made public to confirm the timeline. The disappearance and the strange return were reported by Newald and repeated in media accounts, but the cause of the 10-day gap remains unexplained in the available records. Newald says the days after his return were marked by confusion that did not fade. According to his account, he struggled with recurring dreams and persistent headaches. He describes a sense of disconnection, watching others to relearn simple routines, feeling adrift in familiar places. In the weeks that followed, he reported that his car began to fail in ways he could not easily explain. The problems were so persistent, he says, that he sold the vehicle for far less than it was worth. Newald also claims he found 2 small pyrite crystals left inside the car, with no clear idea of their origin. Alongside these, he describes a sketchbook filled with drawings not remember making. No original medical records, car repair invoices, or photographs of the pyrite have been released. The physical items Newald mentions have not been located for independent examination. Attention soon turned to these missing objects and the question of who else might be interested in them. Newald says the first visitors came just days after he sold his car. In his account, 2 men arrived at his door, introducing themselves as representatives of New Zealand's Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, known as DSIR. The department was a real government agency, active in 1989, and responsible for scientific research across the country. No official DSIR staff list or travel log has been released for that year, and there is no public record confirming any visit to Newald's address. According to Newald, 1 man spoke with a local accent, the other with a British accent. He describes the British accented man presenting a card with a logo for the Royal Institute of International Affairs, the London-based group also known as Chatham House. Chatham House did operate internationally, and liaison cards did exist, but there is no record linking any cardholder to Newald's case. The men asked about the car. Newald says their questions grew sharper when they learned he had already sold it. He recalls their visible disappointment. In his book, Newald claims he moved to a new apartment soon after, without telling anyone. Yet, weeks later, he reports, the same 2 men appeared at his new address. This time, he says, they entered his apartment while he was away. Nothing else was disturbed. Only the 2 pyrite crystals and several pages from his sketchbook were missing. No police incident report or tenancy file has been made public to confirm or contradict this event. What Newold says happened during those 10 days comes next, and subscribe if you want the rest of these cases. Fragments of the missing days, Newold says, began to return as persistent dreams. According to his account, these dreams were vivid and unsettling, often waking him in the night. He kept a notebook on his nightstand to jot down whatever he could recall before the memories faded. Over time, he says, the images and impressions grew more detailed. Scenes of a fog-covered road, flashes of blue-grey figures, the sense of a journey interrupted. Years later, Newold describes undergoing hypnotic regression. In his book, he writes that these sessions brought out new layers of the lost experience, sometimes in bursts, sometimes in fragments. Clinical research on hypnotic regression warns that suggestion, expectation, and the passage of time can all shape what people remember. Memory specialists note that confidence in a recovered memory does not guarantee its accuracy, especially when hypnosis is involved. The full account appeared in print in 1997, published as Coevolution by Nexus Publishing. In the reconstructed story, the road grew thick with fog. The steering wheel vibrated, then locked. That is where Newold's narrative of the missing days begins. In his book, Alec Newold describes the first encounter as a sequence of impressions, brief, almost unfinished. He reports seeing two figures. They stood upright, human in outline, but with smooth blue-grey skin. No hair, heads larger than a person's, eyes wide and set between violet and blue. Newold says their gaze did not blink or shift away. He writes that communication was not through speech. Instead, thoughts arrived as colors and tones, layered with feeling. According to the account, this made misunderstanding impossible. He could sense intent as much as meaning. Numbers, too, appeared differently. Newold describes a system based on 12, not 10. He recalls the number 12 as a kind of emblem, central to their world. In the reconstructed memory, one being became his guide. She called herself Xena. Newold writes that Xena seemed neither fully human nor fully like the others, a hybrid, he says, assigned to help him understand. These details appear only in Newold's published account. No independent witness or documentation supports them. In his book, Newold describes what he says he was told about the origins and fate of humanity. According to his account, the beings he encountered dismissed the standard scientific story. The line is specific. Evolution as you understand it is a myth. In the narrative, Newold reports being shown that human beings did not arise from slow, natural change. Instead, he says, he was told that Homo sapiens are the product of deliberate genetic work by an advanced group. The details in his account place this intervention far in the past, with the suggestion that the blueprint for humanity is not random, but intentional. Newold writes that the Giza pyramids were described as a kind of message left behind, an intentionally preserved plan by those original creators. The story in his book goes further. He says he was told that a later force arrived, altered human DNA, and began to feed on fear. According to the narrative, this control was first enforced through priests, then later through law. The message, as reported by Newold, is that humanity's history is shaped by outside hands, with fear and obedience as tools. No physical evidence, fossil record, or genetic study has been presented to support these claims. Evolutionary biologists point to the deep fossil lineage of Homo sapiens and the clear patterns of natural selection seen in DNA. Egyptologists date the pyramids to the Old Kingdom, built by ancient Egyptians using documented methods and local labor. Newold's account stands as testimony, not as established fact. In his book, Alec Newold describes the world he calls Haven. According to the account, Haven is a small planet with gravity less than half of Earth's. Newold says its sun is old, nearing the end of its life. The society, as reported in the book, is divided into 3 districts. 9 councillors govern, each serving a term of 2 years. No councillor is allowed to return once their service ends. Newold writes that there is no money, no shopping, and resources are assigned according to need. He claims there are no animals on Haven, and the silence is complete. The account describes the original home world, Khyber, as destroyed by an experiment in dimensional travel. Among the most unusual claims in Newold's narrative is the story of Earth's moon. According to the book, the beings told him that the moon now orbiting Earth is a replacement set in place about 12,000 years ago. Newold's account does not provide physical evidence for this assertion. Planetary scientists note that the age and origin of the moon are established through radiometric dating of lunar rocks, which show an age of over 4 billion years. No peer-reviewed study supports the idea of a recent artificial replacement. These details, as with the rest of Newold's testimony, remain claims in his published account. According to Newold's account, the departure from Haven was marked by a parting line from Xena. "Let the sun see your eyes, do not hide yourself from a friend." He describes waking back in New Zealand, disoriented and alone. The story does not end with his return. In his book, Newold reports that men later approached him, identifying themselves as intelligence agents. He says they appealed to his patriotism, and he refused to cooperate. Another figure, named as Jeff Wright, is described in Newold's account as a car dealer who sold him imported vehicles. Newold later claimed these cars turned out to be stolen. Facing legal pressure, Newold says he was offered a deal, cooperate, and the case would go away. He reports that he agreed and was left alone. No court records, police files, or business documents have been released to confirm these events. Despite the pressure, Newold went ahead and published his story in 1997 as Co-Evolution. The book stands as his public record. Newold says his account stands alone, with no independent records, only his testimony. Today, stories like his test the line between memory and evidence. For those who seek names, dates, and documents, the questions remain open. Subscribe for more investigations that let you decide what matters.